In today's show, Jeremy McGovern retires. Fremantle make it 5 in a row. And what now for Oscar Allen? Welcome to the West Sports Show. We are brought to you by TabTouch. Got the touch? Download the TabTouch app today. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. I am joined, as always, but on a Friday, not a Thursday, by Mitchell Woodcock. G'day, Mitch.
Hey, Quarters. How are you today?
I'm very good. The big news this morning is what we suspected. Jeremy McGovern has retired. He has been forced, medically retired by an AFL concussion panel. You and I were both at the press conference. Very emotional scenes, packed out with, friends, family, teammates, former teammates. Adam Simpson, his premiership coach, was there. Andrew McQualter, his current coach, was there. And I think it reflected very much the wonderful human that Jeremy McGovern is.
Yeah, so the medical concussion panel advised him to retire, and obviously after talks with family, friends, teammates, the club, officials, he's taken that advice. I do believe there's another way they can challenge it if they chose to, but it's obviously a lot more complicated than that. So he's gone down the path of taking the advice and medically retiring, which, on 197 games is a really hard thing to do. 33 years old, 5-time All-Australian.
15 seasons.
Yep, won his first Fairest and Best or Club Champion Award at last year. Just an incredible career. A career of games and then a career of moments. I instantly think back to the 2018 passage, which everybody does, that led to the Dom Shee goal. Of course, he
Wonderful
took that
mark.
incredibly mark. For me, it's a few weeks earlier that always sticks in my memory. I was down in Bunbury at the time where he kicks that goal after the siren against Port Adelaide to beat them. And I remember being with a bunch of mates and watching that game. It was an incredible performance. And more recently, I just remember the games where you see him put his body on the line and he looks like he's been just crunched. Like he's hit the deck, he's copped someone in the back, a knee or a collision, and you wonder if he's going to get up. You're looking at him and he just looks like he's in absolute agony. And then the next thing you know, you're looking at and he's in another contest.
Yeah.
And you just can't believe it. And I asked him about that today at the press conference, and just an outstanding player who you can say just put everything,
left absolutely nothing out there. He will retire knowing he gave it everything he could. Now, before we go on about him, just on the actual decision to retire, let's hear a grab from Jeremy himself on how he reacted to the news.
Yeah, I've had a fair few weeks to think about it, but it's not the way I want to go out, but I respect the decision, and it's the right decision. As much as you hate to admit it, as a player, you want to keep playing forever. But for me and my long-term health, it's definitely the right decision and call, and I'm at peace with it. It's okay, because I respect the game, and the game demands a lot from players. And in this instance, it's unlucky for me, but at the same time, there's beauty to it, that it can get taken away at any time. So I hope everyone cherishes it and understands what our players go through every time they run out in that footy field. But it's sad not getting the fairy tale and all that, but I'm at peace with it. It's the right decision.
So clearly he's accepted the decision.
Yep.
I think it's a very good decision. It's a very wise decision. I think he can now focus on his family, getting himself right.
Yeah,
and other pursuits. Like, I want to give him a shout out here, the McGovern Foundation, which is a wonderful foundation. They basically, kids in remote communities who wouldn't have the wherewithal, they get them their driver's license, which is something you wouldn't think about. But they've tapped into that niche, which I think is really important. So
it's the little things in life that you don't often think about that sometimes are the hardest for some people. And for a guy like Jeremy to be able to provide that, or help provide a service that helps young men and women do that, is an incredible thing. He comes from country background, of course, Albany. His dad played at Freo and his brother's at, Adelaide, now at Carlton. So he would understand a lot of these things. And like he said, he just wanted to be remembered as a bloke that, his teammates, his family, his friends were all proud of. So just a wonderful career and a really emotional press conference today. I respected him for not wanting to talk about the lingering symptoms with the concussion.
Well, that's his business.
And go into that. And I thought it was an incredibly, he was incredibly gracious with his responses to it, but also, protecting his own business and his own, medical history and where he's at. But obviously the fact that he's had to be retired means that it's not great. And we just hope that whatever is the next phase for his life, that he lives a full and healthy life, because he's still only 33 years old.
Now, he'll hate me saying this because he is the consummate team man, but I'm going to say it anyway. He doesn't play, they don't win the 2018 flag. That's how important he was to them. That game, that preliminary final against Melbourne, copped a knee to the really hard knock to the hip. He was bleeding internally, hospitalised, on morphine. This is the week before the grand final. This is how he entered grand final week. He reckons he was 10 out of 10 pain. As the week progressed, he got to about 3 or 4. Played, suffered broken ribs in that game, still took 9 marks, including the mark that you mentioned before that set off was an important part of the chain that resulted in Dom Sheed's goal. 2018 to me, I think he will look back on that. He'll probably, at the time, he was probably a bit sore, but he'll look back on that and say, I'm so glad I played, but also what a piece of history he's played in. But I did ask him, he was asked what he's going to miss the most, and this is what he said.
Pulling the jumper on, it's probably what I'm going to miss the most, because it was an absolute honour to pull that jumper on and represent the club. And then doing that with another 22 players that we're all running out to have a common goal of winning, and we're all contributing in our own ways. And then the highs and lows of it, and the emotion that the game brings is probably something I'm going to miss. It gives you every emotion known to man, and it's just given me so much. But probably pulling that jumper on and representing West Coast is probably what I'm going to miss the most.
So, Mitch, does he sit alongside? I'm saying he does. Where do you rank him alongside the all-time greats who have played for the Eagles?
Well, he's in my top 10, definitely. Recency bias probably helps a little bit, and the fact that, I've seen
5 times All-Australian.
Yeah, a club champion. Just what he does is incredible. Right up there. And even at his age, still leaves a massive hole in that side for West Coast now, because they're not overly prepared to have lost him and Tom Barrass in less than 12 months. So, we look at it from the personal side, then you look at it from the football side, and it's a big change for West Coast. It's going to be a tough one for them to deal with. Obviously contracted for next year, so they thought they had him for another 18 months. And a lot of pressure now on Sandy Brock, Harry Edwards, and potentially Jobe Shanahan when he does make his debut. It's a big thing for West Coast backline and a big thing in their rebuild.
I'm sure he'll still be hanging around the club in some form, tutoring and giving them advice when needed.
100%, he'll be in their ear. He's that kind of man.
Yeah, well done, Jeremy McGovern, to a wonderful career. Now, Mitch, let's get on to the Dockers. 41-point victors over Essendon. Mitch, what did you make of it?
Yeah, great performance by Freo, albeit Essendon are a injury-hit side, but I think it gave us some clues into the way Freo are working towards. It was their 5th win in a row. They came out of the bye with a win over North last week off a 5-day break, got the job done against Essendon, got another home game. This is a bit of an an eye into what maybe Freo are looking towards the rest of the season and what they can do.
So the 2 takeaways for me were the ruck department. So Sean Darcy rested off a 5-day break. Now, they'd only played 1 game in 19 days, but you can understand off a 5-day break, he's battled to get back into that team through injury. Now he's back in there, so I get it. But he was pretty good, Jackson. Having said that, I thought the kid Vicentini it was very, very promising debut from him. But Luke Jackson, 3 goals, dominated, not only, I guess, when you watch him roving his own ruck work, the second and third efforts, he is quite the athlete, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it was a stage through the third quarter where he taps it down, the ball kind of falls away from the pack, and he taps it from it was almost like a basketball crossover.
Through the front of stoppage.
Yeah, he taps it from his left hand to his right hand, picks it up and sends it inside 50, and you're like, very few players in the AFL can do that at his size. As Sam Darcy may be one of them, but completely different position. It does make you think about where Freo go with this ruck situation. And again, Luke, in the post game, I was watching from home and came out and said that he loves playing that number 1 ruck role. So it's still where he wants to play. So it does leave the situation. We know Freo are wedded to this 2 ruck policy at the moment, but you have to wonder where they're going to go forward.
Well, you look at who they've got coming up. So they've got matches against Hawthorn. So you're talking Lloyd Meek, Collingwood, Darcy Cameron. There's some challenges ahead. So I think he'll be rolled back out for that too. Sean Darcy will play. going forward. But he does look more engaged in the game when he's in that first ruck role, don't you think?
100%. And then you have to wonder, does it change the way they then use Darcy if they do retain him? So if they stick to this 2-ruck policy, does Darcy have to accept the fact that he's no longer the number 1 ruck and that Jackson is, and that going forward he'll be wheeled out literally in that horses for courses manner? And it won't be every week that he's playing.
So Darcy rotates off the bench. Jackson rotates through either the forward line or as an extra midfielder. I really like the extra midfielder role, but you need to be rested at some point during a game. But, geez, he's fit. He's enthusiastic. You're almost playing last night with a smile on his face.
Yeah, I think he did all but 3 centre bounces last night. So that tells you his ability and his endurance. So, yeah, it's still a watch. I know people get a bit frustrated with this conversation because it's one that happens a lot, but it's performances like that change the narrative for Fremantle, really. And if he does that in a big final, Freo could win a big game. So it's a curious one.
So that term, so Fremantle, which has been rolled out so often, because that was the sort of game they lose off a 5-day break expected to win. But this is 5 in a row now. So the last time they won 5 in a row was, of course, 2022.
When they played finals.
When they played finals. So the season really is set up for them. A couple of other takeaways from last night. Josh Tracy back on the scoreboard. Now, I don't think he was necessarily out of form. He just wasn't kicking goals. Voss has been kicking goals, so it was his turn last night. It was a pretty good performance from Josh Tracy last night. I thought the forward line functioned pretty well. I thought at times the delivery inside 50 wasn't as sharp as it could be, and that's probably something they need to work on going forward.
That's a lack of Hayden.
Do they kick? Do they put the foot on the throat though, Mitch? Do they do that? I'm not sure if they do that yet.
So I think first off, the entry inside 50, I think that's a lack of Hayden Young. I think Hayden Young's that guy they would love to be delivering.
He's still, 4 or 5
50.
weeks away?
Yeah, and I even think maybe a bit of Jager O'Meara. I think we underestimate his ability with the ball in hand.
He's not far away.
He's playing Waffle tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
But I think he's still one of their better kicks. I think he's an underrated kick. So, and Sarong and
Cooper
Brayshaw.
Simpson as well, mate. He's a little while off, but
100%.
Beautiful kick.
So, but you look at, the way they go about it, Sarong and Brayshaw, albeit amazing games, but they're not lethal kicks.
No, they're not.
They're not guys who you want them leading out, hitting you on the chest every time. They're not going to nail that. So, look, the forward performance was great, albeit against a really depleted Essendon defence. Was it a game they should have won by more? Maybe. Does the 5-day break hurt them the longer the game goes on? Possibly. I think, they're coming up against St Kilda next at home. So I think that's a really big one for them off the 10-day break, I believe. So
Rowan Marshall, another challenge for the ruck department. So
yeah. So, but look, I liked the physicality from Fremantle last night.
It was good.
I've been big on Fremantle not being physical enough. And I thought that, the physicality is not just getting in Essendon's face, the Shea Bolton pointing at the scoreboard, the Pat Voss tackles and letting people know about it. And then there's that toughness. And then there's the Nathan O'Driscoll running back with the flight. Matt Johnson doing the same. Like, I know we discourage those things and we're not meant to praise those things.
We discourage them, but I think we've got to the stage where I think we need to applaud players for not doing it as well.
100%. Yeah. But I think there's also there's the toughness you can show when you're wrestling players, and there's also the toughness you can show when you're hitting the ball at 110%. And I thought Freo did both very well last night. And I think that's a big tick for his side because Justin Longmuir will need that come finals.
Little bit of a spike in percentage too, which won't hurt. Accurate, Mitch. They took their chances from set shots last night, so that was a big plus for them. The other one was Nat 5. So it didn't jump off the page statistically to you. I think he had 8 possessions, but importantly got through 3 quarters. So he was used as a high forward, so who'd move up the ground and play as that extra midfielder at stoppage. Mm-hmm. He played deep forward at times. Sometimes he played midfield. So they used him in a variety of roles. But I think it was a tick for him to get through 3 quarters. He's not going to be. Clearly, he's not the midfielder he once was. That moving, dynamo through stoppage. I don't think he's ever even going to be that, midfielder you bring in and he's going to impact in terms of outside, inside. But I think he's like a bit of a sledgehammer. I think you can use him to impact games with a big body. I mean, I think he will play a lot as the sub, but they need to get some miles in his legs, and that's what they did last night.
I think they need to do that for two reasons. So I have the belief now when I look at the game style they're playing that come finals, his ideal position will be the sub every final.
Yep.
That's my belief at the moment. I'm not privy to any information. It's just the way I'm looking at it.
I'd agree
but
with you.
They need to know he can play 3/4 of a game, because if you start someone as the sub,
Of course, they could be in the first 2 minutes.
Exactly. So there's not every chance you're going to get. They got lucky last night. Well, not lucky. They got fortunate, like most teams do every week, that they probably didn't have an injury. So James Aish could come on late and they can roll him through. I also think it's the same. I think they're testing James Aish for that role as well, because I think James went in a little bit into the midfield as well, if I'm not mistaken, late in the game. So I reckon that they're looking at Fife and Aish as those two experienced guys come finals, that if one of them's injured, so I think they prefer Fife. I think if Fife was injured, Aish could play that role. And I reckon they wanted to see how it would work. I think they need to get a few games. So I think Fife will probably play most of a game next week as well, and then be subbed out in the best possible way. And then it wouldn't shock me if he goes back to the sub for a couple of weeks and then does the game again. And just to balance it so that come finals, they've got a fully fit Nat Fife that if he needs to play 3.5 quarters, he's ready to go. But ideal world, he comes on in that final quarter and a half, has 8 disposals, 3 clearances, crashes some packs, and is the 25 minutes of Nat Fife that you just explode him in there in a big final. That wouldn't shock me if that's the move that they're trying to make.
Now, please don't think I'm trying to put the moz on Fremantle here, but really, a final spot's theirs to lose now. It's set up beautifully for them.
Well, it is, because they've got a good run home. It was the 6th
They've got good players coming back. Hayden
Yep.
Young, Cooper Simpson, still got maybe Sun Walters isn't far away.
Well, he's playing Waffle tomorrow as well. I thought Nathan
Amira.
O'Driscoll was really promising
He was
last
good.
night.
He's a player I want to see in that 22, because I really think he's not the same physique, but he's your Stuart Dew in finals. I really think he can be a real X factor.
That left footers are very rare as well in Fremantle's side. They need those. We saw that with the Hawthorn dynasty. Then you got to look at the way, I thought Neil Erasmus was really impressive. I think he had 7 clearances last night. So, even if he's not in their best 22, he's fighting for a spot. Will Brodie down in the Waffles, clearly not part of their plans, but he's fighting for a spot. They've got depth. There's players that are hungry. There's 6 or 7 guys in there. Brandon Walker's playing Waffle tomorrow. There's 6 or 7 guys in that team last night that know that they're not far away from being out of that team. And that's where Justin's got a real advantage now heading into the next 6 to 7 weeks. If one team beats them well and they have a poor performance, he can really throw the kitchen sink at some guys and really make some changes and make some statements.
And I think his body language has changed too, the coach.
I think he's representing the aggression, the controlled aggression that his side is actually starting to represent. And I think it's a really smart way for Fremantle to go forward.
Now, down the road, they didn't play this weekend, the Eagles. They've been off doing whatever they're doing. Don Pike's overseas, a couple of boys. Jack Graham's been off fishing. But Oscar Allen. So it's gone from being, some not serious leg injuries to a bit of a medium-term rest. That was an odd term, medium. Now to knee surgery, won't play again this season. Has he played his last game for the Eagles?
Well, that's the big question everyone's asking. So I'll start with the injuries. The Achilles injury is not a full rupture. It's a 6 to 10 weeks with rest.
And that was worrying when he went down off the ball. When that happens, it doesn't look good.
So I think it's a higher, by the looks of the way he was pushing his leg. It was almost like a calf. They thought it was that muscle between the calf and the knee.
By the way, mate, I know how he feels. I pinged a calf going for a run yesterday.
Bloody hell.
I was going beautifully too back in my training program and pinged one. And, I was hobbling around last night.
The old man injury,
The old man injury. Well, I am getting on, but it feels a bit better today.
Well, do you need 6 to 10 weeks rest?
No, I'll be having maybe 4 or 5 days.
So, Oscar, that's what I understand. The patella tendon's the one he's been dealing with for a long time now, for a number of weeks. It actually hasn't affected his performance too much in terms of, I think he's been running, actually the best he's been running in the last month before he picked up this injury. And I watch a lot of Eagles, obviously, so I've seen it, and I actually thought this last month was the best I've seen him cover the ground. It's just an untimely injury. It's in what we will call his good knee. I'm doing the bunny ears because he was in his left knee. So the right knee is the one that is the speculation of concern as to why apparently West Coast aren't offering him as big a deal as rival clubs. Whether that's entirely, depends on which camp you talk to, is depending on how severe that knee injury is. Some people will say it's not too bad. Some people will say it's enough to be concerned. So the right knee's the one that they say is his bad knee. The left knee, it was a patella clean out. It's actually a 6 to 8 week recovery from that. So the Achilles is going to take a little bit longer. They were just like, well, let's get him through. There's a chance he could have played the last 2 games. I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
He would have been fit for the last 2 games.
If he was fit for the last 2 games, I'm playing him. I'm in the other camp.
You are?
I think if your players are available and your best players are available, you play them.
Yep.
Footballers want to play.
But it also depends. So he's 6 to 8 weeks off legs.
Yeah.
There's a week of conditioning.
I can't
another
see him
week of
playing
conditioning.
again this year.
He's not going to play
No.
again this year. They've pretty much ruled that out.
So I believe that's his last game for the Eagles.
So you're under the firm understanding, and you've been leading the charge on this, that
Brisbane it's almost a done deal, mate. I mean, I think Brisbane is the front runner, has been for a long time. Hawthorn, massive interest, but they haven't necessarily tapped out. But they've been outbid. Brisbane's just got the more compelling offer in front of him, and I believe he'll be a Brisbane player next year, and they'll get good compensation for him.
Well, that'll leave West Coast with the pick 1 and pick 2 if
Yep.
if
they
things
continue
stay
down the same path.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which
finish
we
bottom of
can't
the
see
ladder.
them probably winning 3 or 4 more games
No.
for the rest of the year. So we're just going to pretty much presume at the moment that they're going to finish with a wooden spoon. If the deal, which we believe is around the 5 to 6 year mark and about $800,000, am I correct? It's about that mark. That would trigger the band 1 compensation for free agent, would give them pick 1 and pick 2 for West Coast, which is an ideal platform.
And you can get to
then lift.
work, can't you? And really building that list.
So the interesting thing is this year is the draft is so heavily compromised with father, sons and academy picks that pick 1 and pick 2 are actually
What do
very
you mean this
valuable.
year?
Well, it's worse this
Yeah,
year.
well,
I can
it's-
tell you right now that a pick 10 at the moment in the draft, in the indicative order, could push out to somewhere between 16 to 18.
Yeah.
So that'll tell you that West Coast have Hawthorn's pick. That's not going to slide.
Still a first rounder, though.
Yeah, but it's going to be
Yeah, it's gonna
gonna be
slide.
a second rounder.
Yeah, it's going to slide.
It's going to be that traditional
Yep.
second rounder. So, you've really got to be careful with the way they work this out. So that's my take at the moment, is that would set them up quite nicely. I believe they would go for a guy like Cooper Duff-Tytler, who would be the highest ruck drafted since Nick Nat-Nui, ironically with pick 2 to West Coast.
Yep.
He's a young ruckman. And then the pick 1, well, he could be pick 1 as well, don't get me wrong. But the pick 1 really opened up at the weekend when South Australians Dyson Sharp, the captain of the under-18 side, went absolutely bananas in a rolloping of WA. And I believe he's now firmly in that conversation. He's a big-bodied midfielder who moves well and kicks goals. I think it'll be about him, Willem Dersma and a few others. But watch the name Dyson Sharp. And I can tell you now that Eagles' main recruiting boss, Dwayne Massey, not this would have a massive effect, but he lives in South Australia. So he would see him a lot. He would know a lot about him.
Mitch, let's pick some winners. But first, let's hear from our good mate, Shorttey at Tab Touch.
Shorty's tips.
It's producer Josh here, and joining me in the studio is David Short from Tab Touch. How are you, Shorty?
Really well, Josh. How about yourself?
Really good. Who's hot this week?
Running hot, Tom McCarthy from West Coast, the mid-season number 1 draft pick, made a tremendous debut last week. 31 disposals, 6 marks, 571 metres gained, and a disposal efficiency of 93%. That was some debut from Tom McCarthy. Long may it continue for the young man.
It sure was. And you're cooler for this weekend.
Cooler is Sam Taylor. Wretched luck for the Giants' key defender. He's set for a stint on the sidelines with that broken toe. They'll really miss him.
And on the drift?
On the drift of the Giants, they've drifted from 165 out to 185 for their match against the Suns this weekend.
And who have you got your eye on?
Sam Darcy, who hasn't? The big fellow from the Western Bulldogs. He returned with a bang last week, took 9 marks, kicked 3 goals. He's paying $8 to be the first goal scorer and $5.20 to kick 5 goals or more against the Tigers. They don't have the strongest of defences. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big day out this weekend.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Shorty. We'll see you again next week.
Cheers, Josh.
Okay, mate. Tonight's game, 5:40 p.m. GMHBA, Geelong, $1.37. Brisbane, $3.10. Firstly, Brisbane. How bad is the stutter?
Yeah, I don't think it's too bad. They've done enough to get through where they've gotten through. I'm not a ruling them out kind of guy. At the Gabba, they're going to be really hard to beat the longer the season goes on. I think, there's always not a premiership hangover, because I don't think that's what Brisbane have got. I think there can be a tiredness that comes with playing in grand finals and getting up for the next season if you're not fully prepared. But I think they're around the mark still, but it's just because it's in Geelong. I've got to go with Geelong, the way they're playing at the moment. Like Max Holmes last week. I know Bailey Smith gets a lot of kudos. Max Holmes is an unbelievable player.
The Dukes of Dash.
Oh, mate, he'll be the next captain of Geelong. Max Holmes and Paddy Dangerfield. Speaking of captains, 350th game
Well done,
tonight.
Paddy.
One of the players I've loved watching since he wore the number 19 at Adelaide in his first year. Just one of those guys. You know when you follow one and you pick him early. I was only a kid and I just loved him from that moment on, and I love watching him play. So hopefully he has a great game tonight. But the Cats for me down there are just too strong.
And has always been really giving to the media, Patrick Dangerfield too. And
understands the game.
Yeah, understands the game, understands how the landscape works. So congratulations to him. I hope he has a great game. A couple of outs. Sam de Koning with a shoulder, Koladashny with a back injury. Oliver Henry comes in. For Brisbane, Kitty Coleman's 3 to 4 weeks away from a quad. Callum Archie is out with illness. And Jack Payne, concerning for them. That's a really big out for them. He won't play again this year.
Speaking of patellas.
With the patella injury. Darcy Gardner, a bit of a like-for-like, comes in. So it balances out. But I think Jack Payne, he gets the big dudes every week, right, Jack Payne? So that is a big out for them. My concern with Brisbane is they've lost a few at the Gabba, but they're scoring less at the Gabba. Now, whether that's just the Joe Danaher factor, I don't know. But I just don't think this side is as potent and as hungry as it was at the same stage last year. So for me, they're a bit of a watch. At the moment, I want to see more from them, and clearly I'm picking Geelong at the Gabba. At GMHBA.
I think with Brisbane, it's your Bs and Cs that were playing like A minuses and B minuses last year.
Yep.
They're just not doing it. Like your Kai Lomans and your Archie has a couple of games here and there. I know he's not playing, but just those guys for me, I'm just a watch on them. If they lift and pull themselves up, Brisbane will be a watch, but they've just got to get more. Their stars are playing to star power. Their next level tier have got to just step up again.
MCG Saturday 11:20 a.m. Western Standard Time. Carlton $1.25. North Melbourne $4. Mark Pitney comes in for Carlton. Hudson O'Keefe out for North Melbourne. A very important in Charlie Comben, and Dawson goes out, who was his replacement last week. North Melbourne, 6 of their last 7 games have been decided by 10 points or less. They are just the second team since 1968, Mitch. After Collingwood in 2022, to play in 6 games decided by 10 or less points in a 7-game stretch. They're not far away. No. We saw them split a 1-1 here on their trip to Perth, on their stint in Perth. So you can see where they're heading. Carlton, on the other hand, not sure how convincing they were. I'm picking Carlton because I'm yet, like, the trust isn't there yet with North Melbourne, and they fluctuate. But clearly, the last 2 months they've been pretty consistent, haven't they? But overall, have you got trust in them?
Not yet, but I think they're one of those teams that I can see bumping next year.
Yep.
The longer the season goes, some of their younger bodies are starting to get a bit sore. They've got some senior guys around, but they're a bit older on the senior length in Darling and Parker. They're not your early 30s. They're more your mid-30s. That's where it hurts. A bit longer you go. So Carlton, Charlie Curnow named in the team despite the
and Mackay now out for a stint with surgery as well.
Carlton aren't really consistent, but in saying that, they're probably just got to do to North what they did to West Coast last week, which is put a quarter and a half of really good footy together, give themselves a big gap, and then hold on for dear life.
One of the improvements for North Melbourne, so the first 6 rounds they conceded about 117 points per game. Since round 7, that figure has dropped to 77, so they're defending much better, North Melbourne. Bit of a tick for a couple of Blues. Ollie Hollins has forced a turnover from 19.8% of his pressure racks, which is the second highest percentage of the top 50 pressure players in the AFL. And Tom de Koning, only Max Gawn, 21.6 average, is averaging more disposals than him. 19.8 for Tom de Koning, so he's a good player.
He's definitely a very good player.
So you're going with Carlton as well?
Yeah, Carlton.
Okay, Adelaide Oval, 2:15 p.m. on Saturday. Port Adelaide, $1.71. Sydney, 2:15. Now, I've picked Port Adelaide here purely because it's the home game. Ollie Wines and Alira out for Port. Lockie Jones comes in. But Sydney, I'm concerned about this tip. Sydney, big ins, Mitch. Errol Goulden, Amadi and Tom Papley.
Yeah, so massive ins. Goulden, first game of the year. I'm not expecting a world-beating Errol Goulden. I think this will be, for Sydney, I think this will be a nuisance factor for the rest of the year for other teams. I think they'll push some really good sides. I'm going to stick with the Power for this one. I think they're going to be up and about. But
Powers, it'll be in the back of their mind round 21 last year, mate. Do you remember that?
yeah, it was.
They absolutely gave it to Sydney.
He smacked them.
Yeah, so
And Sydney, this is when Sydney, the wheels fell off. But just for me, the Swans at the moment, Papley's going to be out. He's been out for a while. He's coming back. Amadi's been out for a while. They're just a bit underdone, and it's at Adelaide Oval. So the Power for me. But yeah, watch Sydney. I think Sydney will use the rest of this year. Dean Cox will use it to build into next year. They're not conceding the season's done because their academy picks and stuff doesn't matter where they finish on the ladder. They're just going to get the best kids that they can through the door. But they will be looking to try and build, maybe change some roles and see what they can do for next year, and then they'll launch again.
well done to Mitch Georgiades, a career high 7 goals last week too, so he's in really good form. Has had a good year, Mitch.
Fantastic player.
Good to see. Marvel Stadium, 5:35 p.m. on Saturday. Collingwood, $1.16. St Kilda, $5.25. Lipinski in for Collingwood. Philippou for St Kilda. Can't possibly find a reason to pick St Kilda in this game.
Is this the battle of the most exciting team to watch versus the most boring team to watch?
Yeah, it's a fair call.
Yeah. I think Collingwood right now.
I don't mind
play-
watching Geelong either. I think Geelong are got a big excitement factor about them.
But Collingwood just play so fast-moving, aggressive, confident style football, and St Kilda, maybe Essendon rivals them a little bit with that back to kicking, but Jesus, St Kilda play dour football, and I just can't see them. Only reason to watch St Kilda is Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller, to be honest with you, at times. He's just
So he's just lock him into the All-Australian team.
He's just a fantastic player, and they can't afford to lose him. But the Magpies should thump him.
Having said that, Wanganeen Malira had a season-high 6 clanger kicks, Mitch, against last round against the Bulldogs, but still finished with 31 disposals and 604 metres gained.
Well, when you're doing it all yourself, you're going to
Yeah, I
probably
know.
stuff it up every now and again.
He is doing it all himself. Collingwood, fueled by the older brigade, still side bottom, averaging a career high 430 metres gained and 4.6 clearances this season, along with 1.2 score assists. Darcy Cameron in terrific form, Josh Dacos, and Jamie Elliott just having an evergreen season. Finished with 14 disposals, 3 goals, and 7 score involvements when these sides met in round 2 last year. I think Collingwood does this one pretty easy.
Agreed.
NG Stadium Sunday, 11:10 a.m. GWS $1.87. Gold Coast Suns $1.93. I don't believe they've won at this stadium, Gold Coast.
I couldn't tell you, but
So-
it wouldn't shock me.
Couple of ins, Toby Green and Jake Stringer for GWS. Brent Daniels just can't take a trick, and Sam Taylor. They're pretty big outs. Lockie Weller comes in for Gold Coast. Aaron Cadman and Jesse Hogan, 6 and 5 last week. First teammates on record to have 15 plus disposals, 5 plus contested marks, and 5 plus goals in a game. They're going to be really hard to stop. We know that the Suns are equipped pretty well in the back half and can't be discounted, but just a little bit off at the moment, Gold Coast. I'm picking GWS.
Yeah, so the Suns coming off the bye. I'm picking the Giants just because, again, it's at home. If it was anywhere else, I'd probably...
Are they in
lean
danger of
towards
missing the 8, the Suns?
No. I think they're steadied. I think they're mature.
They're not top 4, though.
Not at the moment. I really want the Rao decision to come through. I feel like that could destabilise a side heading into finals. And they don't-
Destabilise, yeah.
And I don't think they know what he's doing yet. I think if he committed...
The longer it goes, Mitch, you know how it works.
I know, and it's silly because people would say, oh, it doesn't matter. I just think with a young side like they are and a young club that I think they need everything to go right their first finals campaign to make an impact. And I think if he's not signed, I think there's a little shaky ground.
Marvel Stadium Sunday, final game of the round, 1:20 p.m. Western Bulldogs $1.03, Richmond $11.50. Western Bulldogs, the team, those in the 8 are looking over their shoulder saying, gee, I hope they don't make finals. Harms into that side along with West Australian Bustlinger, so well done to him. And our old mate Jacob Blight comes in for Richmond. Can't find a way to pick Richmond, as the odds would indicate. I think Western Bulldogs win this one pretty comfortably.
Yeah, it should be a percentage booster for them. Richmond have been so good this year, considering where they've come from. Props to Adam Uza. I think he's had a fantastic second season in charge of that club.
I thought his first season was pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think he's just really improved that team. Overall, though, yeah, the Bulldogs, they're just Sam Darcy, Bontempelli, they're just going to grow into this year. And like
How
you
good
said,
was Sam Darcy's comeback game?
Oh, he's an amazing player. He's only going to be better. And, someone like Jacob Blight's probably coming into the side to help, whether it's with Norton or him, but you just can't stop him with those arms and that leap. it's going to be so hard, but you can't really tip against the Dogs. And like you said, if they sneak into the 8, they can really do some damage.
Mitch, favourite time of the week, Thirsty Camel mailbag. This week's special Emu Export cans. The Camel Club member price is $59.99 a block. Are you a Camel Club member?
I'm not, but I probably need to go.
You need to be.
I need to
Both
get over
of
that
us
hump.
need to be. You can join up, Mitch, in-store or online today. So get your membership.
Well, I know what I'm doing when we get out of here then.
This week, we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher thanks to Thirsty Camel, as we always do. Get your questions in for next week to TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Keep them short, please. And please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email, as we will send you a digital voucher if you're a weekly winner. Mitch, g'day Quarters and my namesake. So this is from Mitch from Kinross. With the announcement that the Perth Bears will join the NRL in 2027, there are pressing questions about the suitability of current venues for rugby league matches in Perth. While HBF Park is designated as the home ground, there are concerns about its capacity and the need for significant upgrades to meet NRL standards. Over the years, concerns with Perth Stadium's turf have been voiced, and watching the Origin on Wednesday night does raise the concern on the Bears holding marquee games at Perth Stadium. Would be good to get your thoughts on them playing the Bears playing games at Perth when they introduced, or if this was never the intent with only Origin playing a fixture at Perth each year. Talking about Optus Stadium, obviously. Always happy to have rival codes questions on this program. I think HBF Stadium is a wonderful surface. It's really improved in recent time. They'll be playing all of their games at HBF Stadium. Possibly if they make finals, you could switch it across. But one thing I will say to our friends at Optus Stadium, the switch over from Origin to AFL from Wednesday to Thursday nights, I mean, from time to time we criticise that surface, but they did a pretty good job.
I think they're starting to get it right. I think it's taken a while, but I think Optus Stadium is starting to really get that right. You know, that was 4 games.
Mate, they start that as soon as the game ends, and they work through the night. And let's not forget, it's pretty ordinary conditions.
So it was 7 days, or less than 7 days. It was 6 days, I'm pretty sure. 3 games of AFL and a game of State of Origin, and I thought the ground held up really well last night.
There were no concerns last night.
Overall, look, I think there's HBF Park, with something like the Bears, it's going to start smaller and hopefully grow. So HBF Park is where it will start. And then if it gets bigger, then you can move it to Optus Stadium, and then we can worry about those logistics. But I wouldn't stress too much.
G'day, fellas. I was wondering what has happened to the Eagles' loyalty with their players. They were a club once known to look after their players. Now they seem to be getting rid of Oscar, which is their captain of the club, for a number 2 draft pick. The loyalty has definitely disappeared. Is this the new way forward for clubs? Will it eventually go the way of other sports that players announce their trade before their contract expires and publicly announce it to the media? That's from Paul in Rockingham. Yes is the answer.
Well, yeah, it should. And I think I've said this a million times this year with the Oscar situation. We need to get to a point as a code where we're mature enough, like the NRL, like basketball, there's so many codes around the world that do it, where you can say, I'm leaving at the end of the year, but I'll give my all till the end of this year. And that's what you do. With Oscar, they're not pushing him out. That's not what they're doing. But there is a sense that they
haven't given him enough love, mate.
No, they haven't.
Be honest about it.
But there is also a sense that they still need the draft pick. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, you have to wonder what the old regime did at the draft table, because I don't think their recruiting in the last probably 6 to 8 years has been up to standards. Since that grand final, they haven't got everything right.
Well, look where they're at. Of course they have.
So the need for that pick 2 maybe is more than the need for Oscar. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. Whether that's their thinking, I don't know. But that's essentially what that question is asking.
These days, mate, you're loyalty to your team, you're loyal to your teammates, but not necessarily loyal to your club.
Well, and I also don't think that I don't think players can ask for that when they're happy to have free agency and stuff come in, because it's a two-way street.
This one from Andrew. Do you think the Fremantle promotional department lacks a bit of flair? If the jumper for last night's game was the stealth one, then the stealth bombers would have been irresistible. Boom, boom. I really like their stealth jumper.
Yeah, I spoke to someone at Freo once, and I think it was 5 Guernseys a year they get, 5 to 6. You get 5 to 6 variations.
So you got the Indigenous jumper, you got the stealth jumper.
They've got their Starlight jumper, and I think the gather round jumper, and then you've got your home and away. Yep. So that would make it 6.
Yep.
So I think you can change it up. Like West Coast, they've had their gather round jumper, home and away, and they've also had
WA Day.
The WA Day controversial.
which I loved.
Yep.
People
So-
need to get a grip, seriously.
Look, to be honest with you, people will
Carry
say,
on about nothing about
Yeah,
that jumper.
well, yeah.
Seriously.
I'm just not giving it airtime because I just think it's ridiculous. I love it. Bring it on. You know what I want to see back? And I'm pushing for it. Next year's gather round. If you're
Don't
listening,
say the Power Rangers
No, if
or
you-
the Blue Diamond.
Don, if you're listening, Don, and he's not, but if you're listening, Don, this is Don Pike. I want the ochre back. Bring back the ochre for gather round.
No, not the budgie.
Yeah, one year. Bring
Oh,
it
no,
back.
no.
I'm going to start a campaign. Bring the ochre back.
Really?
Just for once. It'll be fun. Nostalgia. Can you imagine Harley Reid running around in the ochre in the Barossa Valley next year?
Yeah. It's the most uninspiring bird I've ever seen.
Yeah, but it's fun. Like, it's a part of your history. Like,
Right.
embrace this
Let's
stuff.
start. You want to start a campaign on this program?
I
Well,
want
let's
the
start
ochre
it.
back.
I'm not
pushing for
necessarily
it.
agreeing with you, but you seem animated, so
What
let's go
about,
for
you
it.
don't want the Power Ranger back?
No.
What's wrong with the Power
Come
Ranger?
on, mate. It was a horrible thing.
I loved Power Rangers when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I used to pretend to be the red one.
Oh, did you?
Yep.
Yeah, a bit after my time, mate. I was more of a G.I. Joe man. I had a doll with Kung Fu grip. I loved it. It was great. High quarters. Congratulations, Freo fans. 37,000 at Thursday night fixture. Almost double St Kilda's fan base last week under similar circumstances. Though the Saints were under the lid at Marvel. That's from Michelle. Yeah, very good point. Well, you know.
Can she win? Can Michelle win? I kind of I love that.
Yeah,
yeah, look, Ross, Thursday night footy, and guess what? 6:10 p.m. It works. It works. Thursday night, people.
I love Thursday night footy, and I'll add, I like Monday night footy too.
Oh, look, if I was the AFL, I would find a way to be playing football from Thursday to Monday more often than not. Probably not every week.
Because
I think
a lot of people don't like the Mondays though.
especially as you get towards finals. I know they cut the Thursday nights out to try and give teams a bigger rest, but early in the season and about midway through during the buys and stuff, I can't see why not.
Look, I really like that email, Mitch, but I'm going to overrule you here. I'm going with our friend Garrett from a Tuesday email. Went to a lot of effort to talk about a possible in-season tournament. So, Garrett, you are this week's Thirsty Camel winner. Sorry, Mitch. We'll get Michelle up at some stage. Okay?
Sorry,
'Cause she's
Michelle. I campaigned
She's
for
a
you.
regular contributor.
You made me laugh, Michelle. That's a win today.
We need a bit of laughter, don't we? Particularly in the middle of winter, Mitch. You have been listening to the West Sports Show. We have been brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Mitch, how many did you get last week?
6.
So
6
did
out
I.
of 7.
So did I.
Yeah, you did. I know you did because I checked.
Yeah.
So we didn't get too much. And what I just want to say before
Yes.
we go, no AFL in WA this weekend now.
Oh,
So get to the waffle.
Yes, get to the waffle, people.
Get out. There's 4 good games this weekend. One in Mandurah, one in Claremont, big Sullivan Logistics Stadium, Leaderville Oval Derby. Get down to the waffle. Support the waffle because I tell you what, it's a fantastic season.
Well said, Mitch.